This is Princes Street Gardens in Edinburgh, where later on over 3,000 folks are going to be sleeping out to help raise money for people who are homeless. Now that's commitment. Welcome to Songs of Praise. Also in the programme, JJ Chalmers experiences the sleep out firsthand.
So when you think about the pattern of rough sleeping and trying to break out of that, there's no light at the end of the tunnel. That's what makes you think.
I meet a former homeless person whose life has been transformed by Christianity.
An overwhelming, love and mercy and grace and forgiveness just enter my life, you know, it was so powerful.
And we hear how a luxury tour bus used by rock stars has become a mobile homeless shelter.
The VIPs, the very important people that this bus is for, is those homeless guys.
This is Sleep in the Park, now in its second year in 4 Scottish cities. After an evening of live music, over 10,000 people are sleeping out, raising over £3 million, which the charity Social Bite shares with projects helping homeless people. Earlier, I caught up with 2 of Scotland's church leaders who are joining in.
In some ways I'm not looking forward to it, because it could be very cold, it could be wet and windy. I'm under no illusions. I know that one night alone is not going to solve the problem, but we can empower the people who can make important decisions to see that this is something they need to tackle because we want them to.
I give thanks that I've actually got a bed and I've got a roof over my head. There are too many people that don't. I'll give thanks for what I have in the light of what so many don't have, and then remember them in prayer.
The founder of the event is young entrepreneur Josh Littlejohn.
It's a phenomenal way to raise funds, and they're being invested in all kinds of ways to help lots of people off the streets and into their own houses. So it's a fundraiser, but also it's an awareness raiser.
So the sleep out's just about to begin, and we begin our music here in Edinburgh with a traditional hymn uniting the world in praise. It's a winter Saturday night, and at Sleep in the Park in Edinburgh, over 3,000 people are preparing to bed down for the night to raise awareness of homelessness. Now, I've got to work early in the morning, but we've someone perfectly suited to a sleep out, taking part for Songs of Praise. I'm pleased to say that my very good friend JJ Chalmers is going to be sleeping out tonight. JJ, how are you feeling?
Well, I'm really interested to meet all these people, if I'm quite honest, find out exactly what they're looking to get out of it and really share the experience with them.
Well, that queue's starting to move, so I think you better go and join it.
All right.
Night, God bless, JJ.
Travel safe.
So, I've signed in. Thank you very much, sir. And it's time to find out just why everyone's choosing to take part.
It's particularly pertinent at this time of year when it's cold and when it's, you know, it's difficult to be out in the street as a pedestrian in bad weather. So it's impossible not to be touched by what you see.
You don't realise until you've actually done it how bad it is when you're having to sleep out on the street.
I've got a lot of family that look after me. When I've had tough spots when I've been younger, they've always supported me, but not everybody does have that support. And I think what that made me think of is if I didn't have that, actually it would have been a really, really small step for me to end up in the street.
Now, I've some experience of sleeping outdoors myself from the armed forces, but I'm keen to hear what it's like for real. Until recently, Peter was himself homeless.
Go back to how I became homeless was because I had a serious alcohol problem. I'd done a bit of sofa surfing and sleeping rough, bed and breakfasts, rehab, ended up in the Salvation Army hostel. Got one of their flats and then I got my own flat through the help of them, through the help of the Salvation Army.
So tonight, people here will experience one night on the street. How do you think that compares to the true experience of sleeping rough?
I had my first night once as well and it was the worst night I ever had in my life or anywhere, you know what I'm saying? But like say this, I mean, you've got company around about you and things like that, so it's not as scary and as daunting as if you were on your own. I've got a lot of admiration for anybody who will try to eradicate homelessness.
It's almost time to bed down, and my training in the Marines is coming in handy.
There's a little bit of technique to this. The trick is to make sure you keep everything dry with water around. If you get your sleeping bag wet, you'll be in trouble.
And while some stay up chatting, I'm getting my head down. Alright folks, I thought I'd give you a little update on how things are going. Do you know what? After 10 years as a Royal Marine, being in a sleeping bag just feels like home again. But let's be honest, no one's home should actually be a sleeping bag. And the other thing about tonight is that I feel relatively safe here. In fact, completely safe here. I'm surrounded by people who are in a secure location, and that's very different to what it must be like to rough sleep for real, when you're effectively sleeping with one eye open, never really sure who might be coming or what might happen next. 6 AM, still dark, but time to get up.
Do you know, I've actually slept really well because it's a fairly mild night. It didn't rain, but even in my life in the Marines, there was always an end in sight. You're always a couple of weeks from the end of exercise or a few days. You're always going home to your bed at the end of the day. So when you think about the pattern of rough sleeping and trying to break out of that, there's no light at the end of the tunnel. That's what makes you think.
The event has also had an impact on the Bishop of Edinburgh, who we met earlier.
That was an uncomfortable night's sleep, and although there's no sense in which I've experienced homelessness last night, I have got a little sense of what it must be like for people sleeping rough.
And so, as I head home, our next song points to Jesus, who chose to live with humility amongst ordinary people.